Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us for another inner hour. We appreciate you being here. Hope you had a good week. Uh, I like to, I have a little candle here I like to light. Most of you, I think, have been here before. So also gives you a little, just a moment if you haven't done so already to kind of take a quick internal break from all the, whatever you may have been involved in today or this week, especially anything that's causing stress, to just take a moment of pause, kind of take a breath and let go of that and just be present here for the next hour with us. Shabbat. And there we go. So I think everybody was here last week that's here now, but in any case, we're doing a series right now on good and evil, and you are welcome to. There'll be a point at which I invite uh, comments and questions and discussion. And anytime you, even when I'm not doing that, you're welcome to get my attention by either turning on your camera and mic and, waving at me or there's a little raised hand icon you can do, which usually I see. Sometimes I miss because it's way over on the side of my screen. But anyway, you're welcome to make a comment or ask a question anytime. So yes, thank you, Ani, for raising your hand. If that's more than an example, you can say something if you have something to say, or you're just giving me an example.
Just an example.
Oh, you're so good. Thank you.
I am.
Anyway, um, yeah. So the series we're doing right now is on good and evil, which is, as I mentioned before, typically you hear that in very traditional religious settings. Christian churches, you hear about good and evil a lot. You do in mosques, you do in less so, but you do also in some Jewish synagogues. Um, And then depending on the non-traditional spiritual groups you're involved in, you probably don't hear much about it at all. Or if you do, you hear mostly, good. There's a lot of reluctance to among, at least this is what I found, among uh, I'll just say intelligent and well-educated modern people. Um, in many of the circles that I'm involved in, evil is not a pleasant topic and they don't like thinking about it. They only like thinking about positive things, or it's something that they just think is old superstitious stuff, that there's like no substantive basis to any of that. It's just kind of old mythologies. And if you're interested in that sort of thing, great. But if you're not particularly interested in old mythologies, why would you bother? Um, and so I wanted to kind of explore our understandings of good and evil in this series and have an opportunity, at least for me and for you, to address things that maybe aren't welcome to be addressed other places, or maybe just things you've wondered about, or that you have an insight on that you'd like to share with people. So, um, anyway, that's kind of the a quick summary of what we've been doing. Last week we talked quite a bit about our personal understanding of how we looked at good and evil and what we understood that to be, and we had a lot of really interesting comments and ideas. These are just a few, but there are lots. One is that uh, there's a choice. We have a choice between doing good and evil, so to speak, in how we're going to behave and speak and act, and that what we might think of as evil, often or always, some arises from selfish, ego-centered action versus a more love-centered action. And we also talked about the importance of addressing evil in the world and not um, trying to appease it or cater to it or just deny that it exists, but confronting it when it's ours to confront, when it's in our world, so to speak. Um, Also, we talked quite a bit about the importance of intention, not just action, that there could be basically the same action with the same consequence with two very different intentions, and it would be different. It's intention is a huge and important part of the moral fabric of how we understand good and evil. So those are just a few of the things that people mentioned that I thought were really good that I happen to remember since last week. I'm sure there are other good ones that I've forgotten, but so so this week, before I get into another aspect of all this, if anybody has any questions about what was discussed last week or any comments you would like to share that you didn't get a chance to, I want to just take a moment and invite people to do that just in case. And then we're going to add like another little aspect to this topic. So anybody have anything you'd like to share with me or the group before we add another part that we haven't talked about yet? All righty. So So I'm going to switch over, and in this series, which will be a couple weeks in length, I'm not sure how long yet, depends on the interest and response and all. Uh, we're going to keep kind of adding different depths or layers to these subjects to talk about. So last week we kind of focused on what our understanding of that was, and as it turned out, we mostly talked about the evil aspect. Um, and so I want to start off tonight about when we talk about good and evil in that kind of framework. Um, so what is good? What do we mean when we say that? Uh, so does is there a is there an absolute standard of good somehow? Is it all relativistic? What is the nature of good as distinct from evil? And how do we understand what that is? So anybody who has something you'd like to share or ask, just turn on your cameras and mics. If you don't want your camera on for whatever reason, you're chowing down on something or you're having a bad hair day, that's fine. But anyway, welcome, James. Go right ahead. Oh, you're muted. There you go.
Yeah, I don't have anything yet, so but
Okay.
I'll think of something.
Okay. Okay. Well, thank you.
Yes, but I don't know. I think there's duality, dual aspects of good. There's more like an absolute, and I think that, created by society, but I also think there's more of an individual good as well.
Hmm.
And you can use that to define however you want to.
Right. Right. Can you say just a little bit more about how this distinguishing between those two, like what the absolute you're talking about with social standards and the individual aspect of that?
Yeah, yeah, like an absolute would be, for instance, the taking of life.
Ah,
Or the taking, actually, let me rephrase that because that's not true either. The taking of innocent life
yeah, right.
is, I think, more or less a social absolute for throughout history and throughout cultures.
Hmm. Hmm. I
And
would
then,
agree with that.
mhm.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Yeah, please go ahead.
Yeah, so I don't think there's a lot of those, unfortunately, anymore. Um, but I think, and then of course you have like a little, that's kind of like the top for me. Then you have more of the middle, which is like pay your taxes, do the traffic law, obey traffic laws, things like that.
Hmm.
And then there's at the bottom, at the individual level, whereas, there's a guy on the street begging for money. I have $5.
Hmm.
Should I give him my $5 or not?
Hmm.
Very simplistic thing, but I think that's kind of the way it works for me. And I
Gotcha.
think at each level it has its things have its own rules and morality.
Right, right. Okay, okay, great. That's a nice framework. Thank you, James. Appreciate it. Shuli Nahama, go ahead. And lovely to hear and see you again. I actually didn't see you this afternoon, but I did hear you.
Ha. Ah.
You're
So
on.
Hans first and then me.
All righty.
Okay. My thinking around good is anything that is a kindness.
Mm,
We come from compassion, we come from caring that improves another's situation, whether it's simply holding a door for someone trying to get out of a place, and like people hold the door for me all the time because of the walker.
Oh, right. Sure. Sure. Yeah.
Great gift.
I'm not used to in my head. I don't envision you with the walker. So I mean, I know I intellectually know that, but that's not how I ever picture you. So
Look up here at the corner where my hand is raised. You can see the corner of the walker because this is, yeah. But in any case, and hopefully I'll be able to give it up. But any kind of kindness, it doesn't have to be something that changes the entire world. But
Mhm.
if we enough of those kind of just being kind to people, just simply being kind every opportunity you have, that many more people walk away with a smile and you walk away feeling good.
Yeah.
There's a kind of peacefulness that comes with an action that's kind.
Mhm.
And I consider that those representatives of doing good in the world.
Yeah.
Just simple
You
kindness
remind
to,
me of the Dalai Lama's "My religion is kindness" statement. Yeah.
oh, I forgot he even said that.
Yeah, yeah, that was. I actually heard him say that one time, but I mean, it's been written about a lot in various publications about him. But I was at a conference in Chicago, an interfaith conference, many years ago, and each representative basically was asked to give a brief summation of their religion, what their religion was about. And some of them were quite involved. And Tibetan Buddhism, as you know, is elaborate. I mean, it has a lot of rituals and features and aspects. And so I was kind of curious to see how he was going to summarize all that. And he just walked up to the microphone. He said, "My religion is very simple. It's kindness." And then he went and sat down. So I think of you a lot with that statement. That's, yeah. Thank you.
You think of me a lot
I think of you
with
often
what?
when I think of that statement, actually. I think
Oh,
I think you sort of embody that philosophy.
I made it kind of my path for a long time, so I'm glad it's noticed.
Yeah, it's noticeable.
Just thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Surely, go ahead, hon.
Okay, so even though you still owe me a song,
Plenty, plenty, I know.
I know, tried to
You're
say,
gonna have to add memory on your hard drive just to keep track of how many songs I owe you now.
that's not gonna happen. You know you're always gonna owe it to me. And I need a second to that one, I know. And Lance, because
And
he loves
Lance,
me
yeah,
picking
yeah.
about it. Okay, anyways, um, first thing is Bereshit, Genesis, chapter 1, the first few, creation story 1,
Right, right.
Genesis. Because after every day God creates something, it was a beginning, it was, and it was good.
Exactly.
Everything's created and it was good until you get to the creation of the garden of, in the garden and with the tree of knowledge of good and
And
evil. That's the
right,
first word you get when you get evil.
right, right,
And there's also, and then jumping into the morning service on our Saturday morning service, there's a prayer called the Yotzer that we're supposed to say before prayers of the Shema.
right.
And it's a prayer of creation. And at one of the lines, it's mentioned is I created everything. But apparently, if you go to Isaiah,
Yeah, 45:7.
yes, it mentions instead of saying et hakol, it's et ra.
That's
I
right.
created that.
That's right. I created good and bad, or good and evil. Right.
In our service, it's I created everything. But when you go to that verse in Isaiah, it's the other and it's bad.
Sure is.
Well,
Yep.
good and bad. Good and bad. They say hara or ra in Isaiah.
Right.
So I just want to get those connections that there are there.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Thank you. Those are the two that I typically point out in my classes if when we have discussions about this also, those very same things. And it's in
Ah,
the world of biblical studies and scholarship, that Isaiah line you quoted, 45:7, is a tough one for a lot of people because they don't like to think they like to think we created that, but that's not what the text says. So interesting.
Yep.
Yeah, thank you very much. Really appreciate the biblical
Well,
reference.
something comes out about that to me is that we're supposed to have free will.
Hmm.
And if everything's good, then free will doesn't mean anything.
Yeah, yeah,
We have an opportunity to develop our own goodness.
right, right. Yeah, that's a really this isn't the place for that, but that's a really important, I think, distinction that sometime it'd be fun to do a discussion on about in Judaism, that's a prevalent theme that we have that choice, the Yetzer Hara, Yetzer Hatov, and that we have the ability to actually develop our goodness. Whereas in traditional Christianity, we're pretty much not ever good. And the only thing that is any saving grace at all is Jesus, because we're incapable of being good. And so it's quite a theological distinction. And it's not one that, again, a lot of people talk about, because most people really don't talk theology anymore. But that's a significant departure that later Christianity, not Yeshua. Yeshua never spoke like that. But later Christianity, that was a significant departure from the origins and kind of foundation of Jewish teaching. So thank you. Allison, I see your mic is on, dear. Would you like to say?
I loved her last statement. It just really rings true that we have the opportunity to develop individual and collective goodness, I believe.
Yes.
And I just wanted to say that in some of the progressive churches, which is one that I belong to here in Grand Rapids, they definitely teach that our goodness and relationship with God is ever being transformed, and that we have an awful lot of free will to develop that.
Yeah.
And they are encouraged to do that.
That's wonderful.
And although we are big believers in Jesus, it's much more the original teachings and what Jesus said. It's not this watered down stuff that you were talking about.
That's awesome. Good for you.
So I just wanted to let you know that in some places, including regular, kind of churches with buildings, that some of those things are actually being taught.
That's awesome. And traditional churches traditional places of worship in many different faiths are themselves undergoing a lot of growth and transformation these days. The Catholic Church, for example, has gone from made radical changes in its theological positions on things just in the last couple of decades. So I think there's a kind of an awakening or movement going on, even in quite traditional circles, of being more open to the idea that we're participating with God in the unfoldment of things, and that we do have free will, and that makes an impact on our lives and the lives of others. So, but thank you for sharing that. That's great. I'm mostly, in the old days, Grand Rapids was primarily known as a Reformed area, and so that's neat to know that you found a church up there that's doing that. I love it. All righty. So, anybody else comments on any of that?
Could I just piggyback real quick on something Allison said?
Oh yeah, please.
My aunt, she lives in Greenville, which is about 30 minutes outside of Grand Rapids.
Yep.
And there's a church just south of town, St. Paul Lutheran, and I was there last year, and the pastor there was she was very liberal and had a really unique interpretation of the Bible, which is actually completely different from what I've heard in my entire life. It was really neat to listen to.
Wow, interesting. Yeah, so it's definitely available. Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. There are, I've done a lot of interfaith work and have a lot of interfaith, well, I used to have a lot of interfaith connections. My world is a little smaller than it used to be now, but I don't travel as much at all. But yeah, I have met people in many different traditions, Hindus, I'm thinking right now, particularly Hindus and Muslims who teach uh, positions that the majority of Hindus probably wouldn't agree with, and the majority of Muslims probably wouldn't agree with. But it's really wonderful to kind of see um, these spiritual expansions in different places happening. I really enjoy that. Thank you for sharing that, James. I think I know where that church is, actually. I think I've been there. Um, anyway, Lance joined us. Hey, Lance. I didn't see you earlier. I think you just maybe got on or maybe I missed you. But anybody else have anything you want to say? So, oops, I just saw someone. Ani, go ahead.
Nahama stole my answer. I just wanted to say that.
Was she
Yeah,
looking on your paper during the test?
I think that's what really happened. Um, no, I was going to say the same thing, that without choice, we're just programmed little robots, as opposed to AI. We, um, we can't, if we don't have a choice to make between good and evil, then we're not making the choice to be good. It's just a program that we have. And um, if we have, I'm trying to think of an analogy that would work, but it just seems to me that, if you have some guy who's really lonely and he builds a robot girlfriend and programs what she says to him and all those other things, is he really going to feel like he's loved? He's not. You can only be loved by another human being, and you're not programming what they're saying. So, in order for that love to be reciprocated, there needs to be the freedom to say, no, I don't want to do that. So
Yeah,
that's my take.
yeah, that's good. That's good. Nahum and Shuli.
That's me, Uncle Stephen.
Hello?
Poke on me to give Ani a picking on. My English teacher, well, one of my older high school English teachers would agree in saying that, yes, we are all robots. Because, but he used to say that, once when the bell rings, we all get up as one, get our stuff and go out the door. That kind of robot.
Yeah, yeah,
So, different context, but still counts.
it does. It does. Yes,
When I
indeed.
was in school way back when.
I would say that was operant conditioning, but not robotics. And if he were a more fascinating teacher, people wouldn't be so excited about class. Yeah.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
don't know. Say that if there was a teacher brawl, we'd all run up and rush and see who was fighting each other. I was at a hippie high school, Auntie, so come on.
Right.
Anyway, go on. Okay, and the other comment is about the choice of choosing for good and bad, or whatever. Also made me think that's going to the sidelines of free will, because that's also a main topic of going there too, of we having free will.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that's true. I was in a discussion group a while back, actually a long while back, and somebody posed the question, is there anything God doesn't have? And most everybody there, because it was a faith group, said, well, no, God has everything. God created everything. God has everything. And one of the people there said, no, actually, he doesn't. The one thing God doesn't have is our love, because he can't command that. If he does, it's not love. It has to be freely given. So unless we give it, he doesn't have it. And I thought that was a really insightful, very similar to what's other people, what we've kind of said tonight in terms of choices and free will and all of that. But or the robot image, we could have all been made like robots too. But we weren't. So yeah, I think it's an important part of the whole choice is an important part of the whole process here. And as we talked about a little bit last week, we can make choices that seem good to us when we make them, but the outcomes don't end up so good. And then what? And then what? I mean, then where are we? Which is, I think, where that intention comes into play again. Um, so, and conversely, actually, people can try to do something really bad on purpose to upset somebody or hurt somebody or ruin somebody's reputation or whatever. And however the circumstances unfold, it ends up actually turning into a good thing, and quite frustrating to them probably. But things don't always turn out the way we expect they will turn out. Um, the So before I move on to one other little piece here, does anybody else have anything else so far, just up to this point in the theme? All right. So I'm going to just very briefly tell you a long story that I'm going to keep as short as I can. Um, I know some of you are very familiar with this and some of you have never heard of it. But in the Jewish mystical teachings, collectively referred to as the Kabbalah, there was somebody considered one of the greatest teachers, greatest Kabbalists in history, called the Ari, and that was a title, basically meaning my lion, or the lion of God, and um, he created this kind of story about the nature of good and evil. And basically what he said was that, I'm oversimplifying, that when God was creating, when things were being created, that God tried to form a vessel or a form, like a person, in which he put all of his light. And that form wasn't able to hold all of the light. The light was way too much and could not be contained or held in a form. And that form literally exploded. There was like this cosmic explosion, similar to what many physicists talk about as the Big Bang in physics. Uh, and as a result of this gigantic explosion, um, all creation now is filled with um, sparks of that one light that originally was the one light of creation, and also filled with fragments of the form of this shell or husk that was attempted to hold all of that light. So in all of creation, there are these sparks of light, individual sparks of one great light, and these fragments of a form. And those fragments are called klipot in Hebrew, or klipa singular, and it basically means husk or shell. And the RE in this story said, now that's the position we find ourselves in, that we, the being that we are, consists of a shell or a husk and a light, a spark of light. And that spark of light is encased in this shell or husk or form. And that the spiritual work is what he called raising holy sparks. And the idea was that the light in us is restricted and limited by these husks, and that the goal is to liberate that light in us so that it can freely express and radiate again and raise up and join with all these other individualized shards or sparks and reconnect again into this oneness. And that consequently, deep in every soul is this longing for oneness, longing to really connect, longing to really be part of the whole. And even if you don't buy the sort of mythology of the story, it's a way of talking about this longing that we experience. And And he also said an interesting thing that when we interact with other souls, whether it's verbally or non-verbally or however we interact, that interaction does one of two things. Every single interaction with another living soul does one of two things. It either thickens and hardens their shell, making it harder for their light to reveal and express itself. In other words, it kind of represses that light and makes it feel not safe to bring it out or unwelcome. Or it it thins that shell and makes it more transparent and allows more of that light to radiate through it. So the spiritual work in that framework is to take all of those parts of ourselves, whether it's our ego, whether it's our body, whatever it is, that aren't that pure light, all those parts of us that aren't the pure consciousness or pure light or pure awareness, and make all those parts of us as transparent as possible. Instead of thick, opaque, and rigid, make them soft and flexible and transparent so that more of that light reveals itself. And because in many other places in scripture and in many other teachings, that light is considered to be the light of love. So another way we can frame that is we're trying to make the love that's in us become easier for it to radiate out of us and to touch others and to give it more free expression instead of feeling so confined and constrained and trapped in us. Yeshua even talked about that in the framework of people putting their light under a bushel and that therefore people can't see it and that they need to take the bushel off the light and reveal the light that they are. So similar ideas, slightly different stories, but similar ideas. And so what I'd like you to consider for a moment is maybe there was a big time in your life, or maybe there was just a small moment, but can you think of a time in your life where somebody said something, just verbally said something to you, but it had an emotional impact? And that emotional impact, in one instance, if you think of an example, where those words really made you close down even more, where they made you like shut down, build more walls, made you feel more like hiding, less safe to come out, so to speak, and really felt like it really inhibited you and helped to kind of imprison might be too strong a word, but to really repress who you are. Versus a time when you encountered somebody who said or did something that did exactly the opposite. You felt very empowered, very liberated, a great sense of expansion, a great sense of freedom. You felt very comfortable expressing who you are and sharing what you really feel with someone. Um, if you can remember any of those kind of moments, the shutdown one or the open one, that's what he's talking about. He's talking about having that kind of effect through our interaction with other souls. And it's not just human people. I mean, you can have that same effect on an animal. If you have a domestic pet of some kind, the way you speak to them or treat them can cause them to really withdraw and really experience fear and feeling bad about themselves, or to really feel free and welcome and cared for, all in the way we treat each other. So just pausing there for a moment. Anybody have anything you'd be willing to share with the group about having had an experience, either kind, like that?
Mommy
Yeah,
has
please.
some.
Good. Hi.
I feel like I'm talking too much.
No, you're
Um,
not. You're not.
okay. Well, I am someone who is very high sensitivity. I have a lot of information coming in.
Hmm.
And I heard my entire life growing up, you're too sensitive, you're too sensitive.
Yeah.
And it made me very, very reticent to
Sure.
share what my intuitions or what I
Yeah.
observed
Sure.
or any of that. And it was something that definitely made me hide my light for a long, long time.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes.
So that's an example of that.
That's a great example. Thank you. Thank you, Nahoma. Yeah. Anybody else? Either kind, the shutdown or the expansive kind.
Yeah, I have an example of both.
Good.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, the this is gonna go this is gonna sound odd. It's gonna go back a long way. The summer of '83,
Hmm.
I was in between second and third grade, and I was playing Wildcat baseball at Franke Park. And I would go, well, because I had in the summer, I would go to the daycare center and I'd walk between it and everything. And I remember one time, I was always an affectionate person, at least when I was little. And I remember we were getting ready to the game, whatever game it ended, and there was a couple kids left, and one kid was sitting on the bench, and he was a friend of mine, and I was 8, whatever, and I sat down next to him and put my arm around him,
Hmm.
and he flinched and moved over.
Uh-huh.
And that had an immediate effect on me. I didn't touch another person until I started dating.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah, and I remember even when my father died in '98, when he was in this hospital on the last bed he was going to be on. I remember at one point he held my hand, and even then I felt very uncomfortable,
Hmm.
for multiple reasons, and I think that was part of it.
Hmm.
And then I really didn't fix that until my son was born. Because as you know, kids are kids. They just come up to you and everything, and so but it really wasn't until, I mean, I think I was 31, 32 when he was born, and I'm 50 now. So those it's just some little thing out of the blue that happened that the kid probably wasn't even my fault. The kid maybe had a bad day or something like that, but
Sure.
it
Sure.
just there you go.
No.
Uh,
And that kid probably has no idea it affected you that way.
Oh, not a clue. And I don't know, most people probably wouldn't even remember something like that, but
Right.
for whatever reason, it burned itself into my memory.
Right. Right. Thank you, James. That's a great. You said you had two examples.
Oh, the other one was me with my son.
Okay, perfect. Perfect.
Yeah, yeah. And just getting to know him as a person, and because you have to open yourself up to your kids too,
Yep.
because there's always that chance of them going off and rejecting you and so on and so forth,
Mhm. For sure. For
being
sure.
vulnerable.
Yeah. That's a good, both good examples. Thank you. Um, Allison, go ahead, hon.
I really have noticed, I really resonated also with what you said about our animals. Listening to our conversation is my wonderful Chloe.
Yes.
And she is just such a wonderful gift. But I've thought about from her perspective what it must be like compared to, she was a rescue, compared to where she was, wandering the streets. And I'm just, I'm always really careful and, well, I'm very deliberate about how I talk to her. And it's all, very similar, with a lot of affection and
Hmm.
appreciation.
Hmm.
And then when she does something naughty, like she has this habit, if we're taking a walk and we meet somebody in one of our neighbors and they invite her over to come say hello, if their garage or door is open, she is in their house. And that's not very comfortable for me
Sorry,
or
I'm
them.
laughing because our dog does that too. Go
Oh,
ahead.
drives me crazy. Anyway, so then I yell at her and tell her she's a bad dog. And oh my gosh, the reaction that gets because it's so infrequent
Yeah,
and she does not want to be a bad dog.
of
She,
course.
she likes how things are and how she's usually treated. And so I've seen that immediate emotional reaction.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, another good example. Thank you, Allison. Ani, I see your mic on. Did you have something you wanted to share?
Um, yeah, I was just thinking about the whole hugging thing, hugging incident, and did some after I left Cherubusco, I did some subbing in Fort Wayne community, and in any of the schools, the elementaries, and especially Bunch, which was it's a Montessori school, so it was 3 and up. And I did a lot of work in the ages three, pre-kindergarten through kindergarten in
Mm-hmm.
one classroom.
Mm-hmm.
And almost without exception, those children wanted hugs. And there are very, very strict guidelines about
Oh
allowing
yeah.
children to, and these children, of course, I mean, they're 3, 4, and 5 years old. They haven't read the guidelines. They have no concept of that, but they are hungry for touch.
Yep.
And my hair is very long, and they also, and I wear it down, and they also wanted to touch my hair.
Mm-hmm.
And so with 3, 4, and 5 year olds, you're sitting in circles, like the whole class is sitting down cross-legged on the floor. And then you've got some that are wandering around at certain points. So I'll be giving a lesson to someone sitting cross-legged on the floor. And then I have a child coming up behind me who wants to play with my hair, and then another one who's coming from the side and who wants to be hugged, or wants to hug, comes up and throws both arms around my neck, and so it's very sad to me that, I mean, I had to be very careful, and at the same time I did not want to push somebody away who's obviously starved for attention and
Right.
affection.
Right.
It just would break my heart. I don't think I could work in that place full time. I just think I don't know, it was just too sad sometimes, just too sad.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember that. Shirley and Hama.
It was me this time. Um, so I do have one of those closing up ones. This one you should quite understand because you and Auntie know how small I am.
Hmm.
For size, for those yes, no. For those of you who do not know, I am 34 years old, and most people think I'm like 12 because on I am 4'9.5", though on my driver's license they were nice enough and they rounded up to 4'10".
Oh wow.
So yeah, I didn't even reach 5 foot, so I like to joke that my twin brother stole all the height. But of course it's nonsense. Okay. So it happened to do with a birthing fluke with not getting enough nutrients.
She does have a twin brother.
Yeah.
Yes, almost just under 6 foot. So, but the issue is that the closing up part is that I have older siblings, and I'm the youngest by 5 minutes, and then the next older are also twin girls, and they're 12 years older than I am.
Mm-hmm.
So they used to pick on me when I was little about my size, and that how I'd be a midget, that I'd stay a midget, that I'd have to sit on books when I drove, that I wouldn't be able to touch the wheels, or that I'd need help to drive, or that I wouldn't be able to drive, and just stuff like that. And I had that throughout my entire kid life.
Right.
And, I tried to get to 5 foot. I really did. I was hoping to get there, but it didn't happen. And to this day, I am still very touchy when it comes to size. When it's a kid and they ask me how old I am and they think I'm like 12, 13, 14 years old, it's cute. Usually it's 12 or 13.
Right.
And I'll give it to them because they're innocents. They're just innocent and they just spout out a number. So I give it to them. But adults should know better. And it frustrates me. It just pisses me off I just get really, really angry and frustrated
Yeah,
when
yeah,
people come up to me and think I'm 10 or 12 years old when I was in my late 20s.
yeah. Oh,
Someone literally,
I remember that. I remember that. Yeah,
I
yeah,
was in my late 20s.
yeah,
And it's like, it made no sense. And I'm the same size as I was in my late 20s as I am now.
yeah,
And that person didn't know me. We were just meeting each other for the first time, and he was an adult.
yeah.
And it's just like, really? Seriously?
Mhm.
It's really
Well,
frustrates me. I'm always happy when it's, someone guesses and it's more like closer to my age.
sure,
But
sure. Well, Auntie Annie never made it to 5 foot either. So you guys are the same height.
I thought she was taller than me.
Nope. So we'll measure. Well, next time we see you, we'll measure you guys. But she's really at that same height. Yeah.
You'll still be the tallest, even though mommy will be 2 years old, 3 days old, no matter what.
That's right. Thank you. Thank you, Shirley.
You're welcome.
Yeah. And well, I'll wait a moment in case anybody else have anything you wanted to share? All right. So a short thing. So in Shuli's case, that was, I mean, they were doing that on purpose. I don't think with the purpose intent of hurting necessarily, but they were saying those things, intentionally. Um, I one of the things that really affected me when I was young, really young. I've always loved music, and when I was really young, my parents were having a party, and their house was set up so that there was the party part of the house was in the back part of the house. There was a swimming pool in the back end. There was a very large recreation room at the back end of the house that led outside to the swimming pool, and then in the other end of the house there was a small living room. And were having this big party, and there weren't very many kids at that. Well, I don't think there were maybe any kids at that party, but so I was in the living room, just being by myself for a while, and they were all partying, and they were playing this piece of music in the back that you could hear through the whole house, and I really liked it. And so I'm in the living room, and I'm like singing away and dancing, doing a little 5-year-old or whatever, I don't know how, 7 maybe, dance, doo 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 in the room and singing out loud. And my grandpa walks by the door to that room because he's on his way to the bathroom and he sees me. I don't see him. Now, what I figured out later was he was a musician himself, and he loved that I was interested in music and all that. But he thought I was cute. He thought I was cute. So he went and got a bunch of other adults to come look. Without, I didn't know they were there. And I'm like dancing around, singing, with Free Abandon. And all of a sudden I turn around and look toward the door, and there's like half a dozen adults all looking at me and laughing. They were laughing because they were delighting in my spontaneous singing and dancing. But that's not how it played out in my head. What I thought was they're all laughing at me because I look like a fool and they think I'm an idiot. I never sang again, ever, in front of anybody until I was in college. Not ever. And now some of you know that I do music, and some people like my music, like Shuli. Um, I never did that until I was in college because I mean I would play music like an instrument in a band or something, as a background, as a rhythm section guy, but I was never in the front and I never sang because of that. And when I really looked back on it later, I realized what had actually happened. And my grandfather would have been devastated if he knew that's the effect he had on me. I mean, that would have just broken his heart. He didn't know that, and we never talked about it. But my point in all that is that we have unintentional consequences sometimes too, and they can have long-lasting effects on people. And um, and and if we ever are given the opportunity to notice or even suspect maybe we've had an unintended consequence in something we've said or done, um, if we have the opportunity to connect to that person and check that out and clarify things and hopefully heal that if possible, it's a wonderful thing to do. Because when I actually started singing again, which was because of a couple of friends of mine in college actually, who actually overheard me singing too, playing one of my songs that I'd composed that I'd never shown anyone. And they came in and said, "Oh my God, that's beautiful. What is that?" I was like, "Oh," and I was like really embarrassed, like, "Oh, I wrote that." Like, no, it's great, and you know, sing it again. And they are the ones that encouraged me to get back into that. But and thank God because it's been such a wonderful thing for me. You know, music and writing and singing has been such a good thing for me. Um, but I think about all the years that I let that affect me. And it was all actually based on me misreading a situation. Not even something somebody did to me, just me misreading a situation. So I think we all have a lot to learn in being as skillful, to use a rabbi word, as skillful as possible in our interactions with one another to try to prevent some of those kinds of damages, you know, and we can't prevent them all, but just being careful in what we say. Yeah, Lance, buddy, go ahead. Welcome here.
All right. Can you hear me?
Yep, sure can.
Okay. This will be, I got my camera. I had trouble with this earlier in the week, but all right, it's confession time here, okay?
All right.
Spring of 1980, I spent uh, my first and only semester down at IU in Bloomington. And I lived in Foster Quad in one of the dorms, all
Right.
right? So I was able to run they had a quad radio station.
Hmm.
And I was asked to DJ it. Okay, so well, anyways, I got to know the girls who lived in the girls' dormitory, right? So at the end of the year, you know, they have that little 500 event.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. I've been to that. Yep.
Okay, so I got to ride. I lived in Shea, but I got to ride with these guys in Shea too, which really made a lot of people mad. All right, because I didn't live in that building, right? But the story of my life. Right? Anyways, they had a big party the night after the little 500 race. My team didn't qualify. We didn't pass the time trials. Anyways, they had an awards banquet, all right, if you will. So during the award giving, good old Mr. Lance got named Mr. Exotic. Okay, but by the girls of the dorm.
Gotcha.
All right.
Gotcha.
I didn't know what the word exotic meant at
Right.
the age of 19.
Right.
And I left and I cried like a baby because I thought they were making fun of me.
Yeah.
And so the hell out. And then I opened up the dictionary and it just meant strangely beautiful.
Yeah.
So I've been riding that cloud, you know, for a long time. Now I know what that word meant, but man, for an hour, it's like it was awful.
I know. I know.
So anyway, like Shakespeare said, all's well that ends well.
True. True. Another great example. Thank you, Lance. Yeah, appreciate it. Ani, I see your hand up again. Go ahead, dear.
Yes, I was just thinking maybe James's buddy was like just sitting there and a bee flew by right then and he moved. James didn't even realize it. He thought it was about the hug. It was about moving away from the bee.
There you go. That couldn't possibly be because we have so many yellow jackets out on our apple tree today, could it? Right.
It could.
Yeah,
It
it
could
could.
indeed.
It could. Anyway, yeah, yeah, exactly. Exactly. Um, so anyway, so to come back to the original thing of what good is, I want to give you a slightly different take on this, and we'll need to wrap up in a minute. But if you've ever studied the writings of Plato, who writes mostly about Socrates, his teacher, um, again, it's much more involved in depth than this, but in simplified terms, basically Socrates' contention was that things were good to the degree that they participated in what he called absolute goodness, that there were absolute moral standards. There was absolute beauty, absolute truth, absolute goodness, and so on. And that in this world, the phenomenal world versus what he called the noumenal world, um, that to the degree something here participated in absolute goodness or absolute beauty or whatever the quality might be, then it was that thing. It was good here to the degree that it embodied that uh, absolute attribute. Um, it was beautiful in the degree that it embodied absolute beauty. It was good in the sense that it embodied absolute good. And and so it was a matter of how much we're willing to participate in those higher moral attributes, how much they're welcome in our lives, how much we hold them in our consciousness, how much we focus on them, how much we value them. And that a society that valued those high moral standards, whatever we might name, truth, beauty, kindness, goodness, all those things, that as we valued those individually and then collectively as a society, that society was healthier and more prosperous and happier. And societies that began with individuals who didn't value those things, the society began to collapse and became much more broken, much more fragmented, and much more violent, and much more um, destructive. And this is a thing we may be able to get into a little bit more next week, or maybe not. We'll see where we go next week. But from my perspective, I think we are seeing a lot of evidence of that right now. That if some of those values have been broken and lost or mocked and unappreciated, we're seeing consequences of that, which are radical consequences. And and again, from my perspective, while it may be that there are things we need to do in terms of laws, and there may be things we need to do in terms of civil and military actions and who knows what else, um, I don't think, while some of those may be necessary to restrain things, none of those are going to be a solution. To me, that solution doesn't happen until individuals start embodying those moral values again in their own lives and in their own in their own moral code, in the way they think and behave and treat each other. And if that starts happening, or when that happens, then you start seeing improvements in families and cultures and society. And eventually that ripples out and expands. But whether we like it or not, the big picture of humanity is just a huge collective of individual consciousness and what's predominant throughout humanity. And right now, the kind of spiritually oriented, moral value, whatever way we want to describe it, those good things um, are are not as broadly held by many people in the world as we would like them to be. And I think as if we can encourage one another to do that and encourage people to do that, even on a very small one-to-one basis, it does it does eventually make some kind of a difference. Certainly makes a difference in the lives of the people you relate to. So, um, so I guess we'll pause there for tonight, and we'll do some more on this. I have a couple other aspects of the good and evil thing I'd like to bring out and see what we get to. But I hope this is insightful and interesting, because I really am enjoying this particular thing. So I hope some of you are too. If you like, drop me a line, send me an email um, about other ideas or comments or anything like that. I always happy to hear that. Uh, let's just take a moment. I think it's about that time. Yep. So let's just take a moment of quiet, just a brief moment of quiet. And kind of as we started, and come back to that. There is a still, or at least quiet point in our being, whether you call that the core of your being or the soul or the essence of you, or if you don't call it anything, there's an aspect of us that is quiet and open and aware, and actually is able to be in touch with love and peace. And so we just take all this discussion back to that quiet place in us. And as each of us goes forward into this new week, may we remember to turn to that place in us as often as possible. And may this be a week of blessing and peace for you. We are in what in the Jewish tradition is called the High Holy Day season. We're coming up on Thursday on Yom Kippur, the Day of Atonement. It's a very special and sacred time in that particular tradition. And even if you're not in that tradition, it's a wonderful time because there's so much history of this particular season being a time of deep introspection, of asking for forgiveness and making efforts at reconciliation, and coming back into that oneness again that I spoke of a bit ago. So may this be a time where we are willing to acknowledge our failures and ask for forgiveness, and a time where we're willing to forgive others for theirs, and to really hold the intention of connecting to that oneness of being again, in which we all participate. So thank you all for your support and presence here tonight. I really appreciate it. Love you guys. Hope you have a great week and hope to see you next Friday. Bye for now.